Chapter 278 Indian Arranged Marriage, Part 2. The case of the Indian girl and her kidnapper took over 6 months to come to trial and just 6 hours for the jury to reach a verdict. Rani Krishna's attorney failed to prove a bona fide case of mental disability at the time Jamal Khan met and subsequently married her daughter. The police who had arrested Aphrodite Krishna Khan and the FBI team were able to tender qualified testimony to the effect that Aphrodite did not suffer from diminished mental capacity and was in fact highly aware of her surroundings. They testified as to her condition during her previous arrest, interrogation, and detention. The psychological tests conducted on her indicated that her responses were very childish and that she was sometimes confused, but that in itself did not conclusively point to mental retardation. The inability to cope with many of the situations she had encountered was attributed to language and cultural differences. The psychiatrist assigned to her case rendered a diagnosis explaining that her cognitive skills and her coping skills were indicative of poor formal and aesthetic education, compounded with limited positive social conditioning and abuse during her formative years. He went on record to say that such behavior is common among oppressed and abused Muslim women. In addition, the medical report showed that Aphrodite Khan suffered from a form of treatable mental arrest and categorically eliminated other categories such as mental retardation and autism. The footnote also included observations of her ability to learn despite her childhood trauma and subsequent emotional disabilities. In the end, the jury had to take into account the professional diagnosis of a veteran psychiatrist and render a verdict of not guilty. With the mental capacity of Aphrodite established, the charges of kidnap and rape became irrelevant. The court summarily dismissed the charges of deception and financial exploitation. Jamal Khan was found guilty of the charge of bigamy. Bigamy is the act or condition of a person marrying another person while still being lawfully married to a second person, which is illegal in the United States of America. Such a crime is punishable either by a fine, imprisonment, or both, according to the law of the individual state and the circumstances of the offense. Consequently, Jamal Khan was sentenced to 2 years imprisonment and a $10,000 fine. The court nullified his second marriage contract with Aphrodite Khan, but his love affair with her did not contravene any legal laws of the land. Over and above that, their daughter inherited the parents' right for a child to be a naturalized citizen and having the same legal status of any naturalized child born in the United States. The decision of the court was a strong blow to Rani Krishna. She expected that the American court would convict the third captor of all charges and sentence him to death or life imprisonment. At first, she wanted to appeal the case, but her lawyer advised her against it. He simply told her it was pointless. Aphrodite, on the other hand, paid the $10,000 fine imposed on her lover and promised to appeal his sentence. Aphrodite's decision to appeal the case alarmed her mother. Rani saw her reaction as a challenge to her authority and showed a serious problem in her daughter's judgment. She could see that her daughter was still emotionally attached to the Muslim man and realized that she needed to do something before he was released from jail. He had already served 6 months of his 2-year sentence. With good behavior, he would be out in less than 8 months. Rani did not want her daughter to spend the rest of her life with a man who had another wife and children and who was 20 years her senior. She especially did not want her daughter mixed up with a masla. The word masla used in Indian the same way the words paki used in the UK and nigger in the USA. As with all mothers, Rani Krishna resolved to nip the problem in the bud. Aphrodite could thank her later when she came to her senses. Rani wanted to get her daughter married to her nephew as soon as possible. She knew that her daughter wasn't going to marry anyone as long as she was still infatuated with the Muslim man and had custody of his child. Working towards a permanent solution, she decided to hoodwink her daughter. She discussed her plan with her nephew and he approved of it. According to the plan, Rani would lie to her daughter by telling her that during her incarceration in India, she met someone who knew where her biological Muslim mother was staying in Mumbai. Then, she would tell her daughter that she would like to take her to India to visit her mother. If Amrita agreed to return to Mumbai, Rahul would accompany them. Once in India, she would put up Aphrodite's child for adoption to a Hindu ashram, Christian orphanage, or Indian family willing to take her. Her plan called for Rahul and Amrita to be married in a Hindu wedding ceremony immediately after. Although Rahul approved of the idea, he stipulated a condition. He wanted Aphrodite Khan to change her first name to Hindu and take his last name, which was also Hindu. The condition made Rani extremely happy, and hence she chose the Hindu name Pooja for her daughter. Rani Krishna succeeded in convincing her daughter to travel with her to India to meet her biological mother. Nonetheless, instead of Mumbai, their trip ended up in New Delhi. As soon as they arrived in India, Rani revealed to her daughter what was in her heart. Amrita refused to comply and threatened to return with her daughter to the States and cut ties with her Hindu mother forever. Rani ignored her threat and was determined to go ahead with her plan. She told her that as long as she was living she would never allow her daughter to live with a Muslim man without the benefit of marriage. She said further that it would be a great shame among the Indian community in the USA for an Indian girl to live with a man without the benefits of marriage. When Amrita insisted on returning to the States and live with her Muslim lover, Rani put her foot down and declared that she was never to return to America again. As with all generalizations, religious intolerance, bigotry, and racism lead us all down the same road of hate for those who may look or think differently from us. Many of us harbor prejudices, which in itself is neither good nor bad. In actual fact, that is how we naturally compartmentalize things around us. That's how we know whether we prefer spicy food or mild. What is critical then, is what we do with that prejudice, and how we put it into action. It's perfectly fine to be prejudiced, but it is ultimately damaging to discriminate on the basis of that prejudice. Such was the mental state of Rani Krishna towards Islam and Muslims. Her mindset would not allow her to see a Muslim man as the best choice for her daughter. It was inconceivable that her daughter's best days were shared with a Muslim. Ironically, her daughter, immature as many would say, did not hate all Muslims indiscriminately, although all the evils descended upon her originated with Muslim men and justified by Islamic religious texts, the Quran and the Hadiths. Rani's love for her daughter and hatred towards Islam led her to commit a terrible sin. She took the so-called illegitimate child by force away from her daughter and gave her away to a Christian orphanage to offer for adoption. Her actions deeply hurt her daughter so much that Amrita could not believe that the woman whom she loved so much and considered to be her mother could inflict such pain in her heart. Anyway, after getting rid of the unwanted child, Rani began to prepare for the wedding of her daughter. Once again, she changed the name of her daughter from Amrita to Pooja. On the top of that, at the last moment, Rahul came up with new demands. He informed his auntie that since Pooja had lost her virginity and was used by other men, he demanded a heavy dowry. He demanded $10 million to be deposited into his account before the marriage would take place. He also wanted ownership of Pooja's $5 million house transferred into his name. Rani did not like the demands of her nephew. She accused him of taking advantage of the situation. She told him that she was prepared to pay some dowry to him, but not the amount that he had asked for. Negotiations then pared that figure down to $6 million and a legal share in the American house. According to the agreement, $3 million should be paid before the wedding and $3 million afterward. Likewise, his name would be added as co-owner of the house in question. Rahul threatened to divorce Pooja if the balance of the dowry was not paid or the equity in the house was not given to him. Against her wish, Pooja transferred $3 million from her overseas account into Rahul's. In India, the girl's father is supposed to pay the dowry and not the groom's family. It was not uncommon for the dowry to be paid in installments. If the girl's father refused or failed to pay the rest of the dowry after the marriage ceremony, the bride would either be sent home or be involved in a kitchen accident. Once again, against her wish, Pooja was compelled to marry Rahul Patel. Her tears ran as she circumambulated the sacred fire, reciting the 7 vows of the Hindu marriage ceremony. Her face hidden, the sari was the only thing between her sorrows and the guests. After the Hindu pandit conducted their marriage ceremony, Rahul tied the Mangal Sutra around the neck of Pooja as a sign that she was going to be his wife for 7 generations of rebirths. Mangal Sutra is a symbol of the Hindu marriage union in South Asia. It is a sacred thread of love and goodwill worn by women as a symbol of their marriage. Traditionally, the Mangal Sutra is considered the most revered token of love and respect offered to the bride during the marriage ceremony. According to Hindu cultural ethos, Mangal Sutra symbolizes the inseparable bond between a husband and a wife. During the wedding ceremony, the bridegroom ties the Mangal Sutra to the neck of the bride, uttering, "May you live long by wearing this sacred Mangal Sutra, the reason of my life." Pooja Patel recited the 7 vows perfectly but meant none of them. Neither did she resist when Rahul tied the Mangal Sutra around her neck. Marrying Rahul was the only path that would allow her to make her way back to America. Marrying Rahul would please her mother and allow her some latitude and freedom. At the time of her Hindu rites, her Muslim lover had already served 8 months of his sentence. After the marriage ceremony, Rahul and Pooja were supposed to travel to many cities in India to celebrate their honeymoon. Rani was the one who made a list of beautiful places for them to visit all over the country. From New Delhi, the newly wedded couple travelled to Shimla. After 5 days touring the Queen of Hills, the bride and the bridegroom flew to Goa. Pooja did not know that India had such beautiful cities until she visited the golden beaches of Goa. She only wished her lover could have been there with her to enjoy it. She longed for his loving kisses and manly arms around her. Sex with Rahul was cold and a heavy burden. She always made excuses in order to escape going to bed with him. She did not reach climax with her Hindu husband the way she had with her Muslim lover. Rahul was like an edible dish without salt. She neither loved him nor was loved by him. Rani wielded a considerable amount of influence over her daughter. In what she considered her daughter's best interest, she had brokered her daughter's arranged marriage, separated mother from child, and chose a husband based only on cultural normality. The Indian, much like their Ceylonese and Chinese counterparts, value professional careers above all else. Other highly sought-after marital bonuses are property, money, jewelry, social status, the right religion and breeding. As far as Rani was concerned, Rahul was a perfect choice, even after his selfish dowry demands. Every Indian parent wants a groom that is a young, single, educated overseas professional, doctor, lawyer, accountant, dentist, engineer, or architect. In a last-ditch effort to pacify her mother, Pooja submitted her physical body to her Hindu husband. Her heart was obviously not interested in what was planned for her by her mother and her new husband. After Goa, Pooja refused to travel to any other city with her Hindu husband. She feigned illness and asked to be taken back to New Delhi. The few days she spent with her Hindu husband in Shimla and Goa were like the horrifying days she spent in captivity of her 2 former captors. Everything paled in comparison to her first honeymoon with her Muslim lover. For Pooja, it was like ascending to the heights of heaven, and crashing down into the dregs of hell.